Hello, everyone, and welcome to I'm Not Okay with Day. I am your host, Day. And today we have an awesome episode. I am so excited. One of my new friends, Sylene, is going to be joining me. She is a writer, she is a host of her new podcast, Hey, We Need to Talk podcast. And overall, she's basically my new BFF. Okay. I was actually on Celine's podcast a couple weeks ago and we just clicked instantly. Our connection, I feel like we're basically the same person. We have a lot of similar experiences, and she has so much to offer, so much to share. And so, in this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about her inspiration for her podcast, and we kind of go off just a little bit on some other things. But I think you're going to enjoy it. I loved talking to Celine. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. Here is Celine. Celine, you're on the
Hey
podcast.
there.
Yay! As I said in the intro, y'all, Celine is basically my new BFF.
Woo.
Okay. So I was on Celine's podcast and we just clicked. It was an
Mm-hmm.
automatic like connection, I feel like.
Yeah,
And here we are. when I
we
told
made it happen.
Okay. When I told Celine about planning the podcast, I was like, girl, I don't even really have a real outline because I just feel like our chemistry is just so good. Like, I
Exactly. We
feel like
don't
we're
need
good.
one. People should be a fly on the wall during a regular conversation.
Should
Like
they?
I
Because
feel
I
those
don't know if
need to
they,
be
I don't
podcast
know.
episodes. Oh,
I mean, it'll be entertaining, but
yeah,
we will expose ourselves. So probably not.
exactly.
Anyway, Celine, I'm so glad to have you on the podcast today.
I'm
I
glad to
know we're
be
going to have the
here.
greatest time. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so Celine, you already know what we do
Mm-hmm.
here. We start
Mm-hmm.
with our some type of way segment. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm. I am ready as I'll ever be. Ready to expose
I can start
myself.
first. You guys know
Yeah.
we always start talking about something that made us feel some type of way. So I'll go first and then I'll give you some time to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was on Instagram the other day and I followed this girl. She actually has a podcast herself, and sometimes she does like Q and A's with people. And there was this one Q and A that someone said, like someone asked her, "Oh, like they just started dating this guy, and it's been like maybe what a few weeks, and there's something that she wants to tell him, but like she's afraid, and like when is the right time to bring this up?" And then the person was responding say, then the person responded saying something like, okay, just like be yourself and just say whatever and that's it. And it just got me thinking, this is something that I feel very passionate about, especially as I am now single. It's this idea of like, if I show this person who I fully am and they don't like me as who I am, then there is a problem with me. And it's like this fear
Mm.
of of showing my true self. It's
Mhm.
a fear of showing my true self that they won't accept me. And the way I feel about
Mhm.
that is like, listen, if I show someone who I really am and they don't like that, then that's just too bad. Sorry to them
Yeah,
that they're
that's
gonna
on
not gonna
them.
have this great person in their life.
Exactly.
Their loss. But
Exactly.
I just see this so much where women equate their value based on
Value.
how a man thinks about them. And I'm
Mhm.
just like, ladies, no. And I mean, I
Mhm.
say that as someone who has already done this a lot. Like, I'm still trying to figure out how to not.
Yeah,
But it's
it's a
just like,
journey.
I just want for all of us women to love ourselves and be so confident in ourselves that, like, what a man thinks, what he says is not the determining factor on
Yes,
how we view
exactly.
ourselves, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
So it made me feel like, can we just love ourselves, please? Let's just love ourselves. you
That's a
know?
difficult thing to do, though, especially when we grow up in a society which makes us think that our value is hinged to a man. Everything from marriage to like
Yes.
how much money we make to like the workplace. It's all encompassing. And my some type of way is similar to that, where I've been noticing this trend on social media where men have been talking about being high value men. And
Hmm.
in that terminology. I'm not even sure where it came from. I don't know where it originated from, but for whatever reason, those type of men are also speaking derogatively
Hmm.
about women. And I'm just
Hmm.
not sure why the two have to coexist together. When they talk about submission and they talk about this and they talk about that. Well, actually, I do know where it stems from. I don't want to even go in that direction for this
Yep, girl,
podcast. Let's
because
keep
that's
it
a whole.
positive.
Mm-hmm.
Let's keep it positive. But my whole some type of way is seeing that delegation on my Facebook to the point where I can't even go on Facebook anymore because it's
Mm.
become this mass movement of men who lack compassion and who think that, women are supposed to be this sort of way. And this is why you can't get a man because you're not doing this and you're not doing that. And I think it really plays on women's self esteem, especially those who are coming
Mm.
up, especially those who grew up in conservative communities, because my Facebook is largely a conservative group of people,
Mm-hmm.
my Facebook friends, my Facebook community. And I see this and I'm like, who is there to teach these young women that no? First of all, you focus on God, you focus on your relationship with Christ, and don't let all these other men tell you this is what you have to do in order to find a
Okay.
man. Like, why is that the primary focus for our young women, especially in this tender stage of our lives, especially during the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic? Everything that the world is going through, I think there's just too much emphasis on what women are doing wrong and what we need to do, and not enough on, self-worth and self-work.
Yes. Yes, and I
So,
think that's the thing. That's the issue that I was having is okay, why is the emphasis always placed on what we as women do? My issue is the ties to men. Like
and that's
why
it.
can't it just be you are valuable period because
Mm-hmm.
you
Thank
exist?
you.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's it. And take it or leave
Mm-hmm.
it for whoever you're trying to be with. It's just the frustration I feel is I have to place my value in this man. And yeah, I got to
Mm-hmm.
be a certain way for this man. And if I
Mm-hmm.
want to get a husband, I got to change the way that I am.
Yes.
No,
Mm-hmm.
y'all
Or
need to
do
change yourselves. How about
something.
that? Okay? Like, girl,
I
I'm in a place where I
remember.
don't want to be bitter,
Mm,
but I'm very frustrated just with our patriarchal society. We're just gonna call it that.
that's it right there. That's it right there. That's it right there. And sometimes I need to take a step away from social media because I don't know where the advent, I know where the advent of it is, but for whatever reason, it's like spreading. I
Mhm.
guess everybody's home and their fingers are idle and they
Mm.
need something to do. Recently, a poet that I really, really like, his Instagram handle is Words by Ezekiel, and he's a poet. And he was talking about this issue he has with people encouraging women to say that they're saving themselves for marriage.
I think I saw this.
As if saving yourself for marriage adds to your value, as if if you save yourself for marriage, it's going to attract a man faster. And he's
Mm.
like, no, first of all, you do this in whatever stage, whether you have a low body count, a high body count, a no body count at all, you're doing
Mhm.
this for Christ. You make that your center. Because when you let women think that the prize is a man,
Mm.
when they're like worshiping God and being faithful to God and all that, and it's not coming, they think that's hinged on that,
Mhm.
and it seeps into so many other areas of our lives where,
Yeah.
again, self-worth, we don't do things for other people. It should never be for other people or for a man. It should be for ourselves and to the glory of God. And I just think that as much work as we're doing, especially like with your podcast and with blogs and stuff like that, it's like you teach to unlearn, and then
Mhm.
somebody comes back up and is trying to tell these young women, this is how you attract a man, and this is how you do this, and this is how you do that. And it's so frustrating to see because I've been in that position before where I felt like I need to do certain things in
Mm.
order to be attractive to a particular type of person, to
Hmm.
a particular type of man. And it really eats away at your soul, girl.
Yeah. I
It
mean, it plays
does.
into the insecurities because we all have
Mm-hmm.
them. And then what they tell us is, well, what you are actually insecure about, you should be because men don't want that. And it's like, girl,
Mm-hmm.
we can go on all day about this. But I'm just in a place where I'm like, I have finally been able to say that I love myself now, truly,
I love
with what
that.
all of that means. And I just
Hmm.
don't want to continue to place my value based on another person and how another person
Yes.
views me. Like
Yes.
what I think of myself is most important. And I want to be, and what God thinks of me. And I just wanted that to be the most important thing that guides my life instead of what this person thinks. And
Hmm.
that person particularly being a man, you know?
Hmm. Hmm.
All right, girl. Let's dive right into the
Hmm.
topic at hand today. Because I said we can get carried away with
Oh,
all of
yes.
these things. But we're here to talk about you, Celine.
Woo, me.
Yes. So, as I mentioned earlier, y'all, I was on Celine's podcast, her new
Hmm.
podcast, Hey, We
Hmm.
Need to Talk, which amazing. You guys have to check it out. It's amazing.
Oh.
Necessary conversations. I don't really feel like I've ever seen conversations like this actually
Mm.
happening. And it's crazy because it's 2021. You would think like by now it's time. But I think you're doing something so important. And so
Thank
we're going to
you.
spend time talking about that. I had the
Hmm.
privilege of being your guest on the podcast, and it was
Guess number
so
one.
awesome. The first guest, an honor, truly.
Yeah.
So, Celine, I just want to dive in and talk a little bit about the podcast, how you started it, how all
Hmm.
this came to be. So,
Hmm.
for those of you who don't know, Celine is a writer, also so
Hmm.
talented,
Oh,
and
thank you.
she's very, very passionate about mental health. Tell me,
Hmm.
what was your beginning stages of this passion? Like, what ignited the
Hmm.
passion for you?
All right. So in high school, I suffered with depression and anxiety. But at the time, I didn't really realize it was depression and anxiety. So
Mm,
as I got a
mhm.
little bit older and I started hearing these words, I went to college and people started to talk about it more. I realized I could put a name to the way that I was feeling. And in 2016, I started a blog. That blog is now defunct. It's not there anymore, but it was called From Soldier with Love. And I would write poems on how I was feeling. It was like my safe space and to kind of tackle issues on depression. And then a little later on, I started to, on an annual basis on Mental Health Awareness Month, I
Mhm.
would write a special blog or put up a special video. And this particular year, I said, you know what, I want to try something different. I'm going to put out a series specifically about mental health. I'm going to talk about the adolescent. We're going to talk about men and their mental health. We're going to talk about technology. And then I stumbled on you there and I was like, I just love this girl's passion and her talking about it's okay to not be okay because no one is saying this. And for the whole of, I would say the end of April and throughout May, the Holy Spirit would not allow me to sleep, would not
Mm.
allow me to sleep because there were so many times where I doubted myself. And this series, I said, what am I doing? Why am I here? I don't like to be seen on the internet, where people be dragging people and canceling people and cussing people
Relatable.
out.
I get
And
it.
you see, and I'm such a sensitive person, but the Holy Spirit was like, no, you have to do this. Oh, and by the way, it's going to be the start of your podcast. And I was like, what? The name came out overnight. The Facebook page came up overnight. And I was like, okay, Lord, if this is what you want, no problem. And in the back of my mind, I thought, if this could help one person, because in my journey with depression and anxiety, there was no one who understood
Mm.
what I felt, because in the Caribbean community, especially, we are taught and raised to be rough and tough and to swallow everything and just push it away, hide it away, sweep it under the rug. And in high school, I tried to talk to my friends about it, and they were like, "Oh no, everybody goes through that. That's normal. That's."
Mm.
And I realized that still in 2021, there are difficult conversations that need to be had that nobody's having, and it's just a burden on my soul that if I could save one teenager who's going through something difficult,
Mm.
one young person, one young woman, it would be worth it, because I know how I suffered in silence.
Mm.
I know how I didn't necessarily have support. And I think it's only recently where my immediate family has been able to support me, because they've actually seen the the fallout of my mental health, like
Mm.
the crashes, the staying inside my room all the time, the just being withdrawn. And then they realize, okay, so this is something serious. It's not just a phase. Like mental health is a serious topic that we don't talk about, and it
Yeah.
presents itself in different ways in different people, and that's what I really try to tackle on my blog and on the podcast. I just really want us, I know it might not get better during my lifetime, but I really want to
Hmm.
start the conversation and hope that it helps people to open up more and heal the relationships that they have, because so far I've heard people say that they've been able to heal certain relationships throughout the process, reading certain blog posts or listening to certain episodes, especially with the boys
Hmm.
opening up about the relationships that they have with their fathers. And I was
Wow.
shocked at that particular episode where I had the men on and they were talking about, the childhood traumas and the relationship they have with their fathers and the things they saw their fathers go through, and now how they're working towards healing. It's amazing to me. I did not realize that things were so bad. I knew it was bad, and I thought everybody was just trying to deal with it on their own.
Hmm.
I didn't realize that no one was trying to deal with it at all. And as a conservative person and someone who's a Seventh-day Adventist, raised in the Seventh-day Adventist church, I know that we try to use Jesus as a salve for everything, Jesus as a balm for everything. But as you rightly pointed out in our on the podcast that you were a guest on, and one where Kemuel Brown was a guest on for the men's series,
Hmm.
Jesus has provided people with knowledge and information where, yes, you pray, but you also go to trained professionals to get help. You get therapy, you get counseling. These
Exactly.
people know what they're doing. It's not just people who want to be up in your business. These people actually care about mental health. They care about
Hmm.
seeing the world progress, because we tend to pay more attention to ailments that we could see, cancer and HIV. And if somebody has a broken foot, but no one stops to consider the mind. And they
Hmm.
think if you just have positive thinking, it could all go away. And it's not that simple for everybody, because everybody's case is different. So, with that being said, I just think that starting with vulnerable conversations is the
Yeah.
way to open up the floodgates of having proper medication, having our communities actually take advantage of resources that they're not even aware
Yes.
exist. And so, yeah, that is how and why the blog and podcast exists.
So I have a question, Celine. You talked about
Mhm.
experiencing anxiety and depression, not having the label or the even really understanding of what that was. What was it that gave you that insight and said, oh, and made you realize, oh, I have this problem? And then
Mhm.
how did you deal with it when you realized this was an issue that I'm having?
I actually can't remember, but I have a feeling it was during college, because college opened up my eyes to so much. I think it was during spoken word, actually. Yeah, so
Mm.
spoken word was a big movement on my campus. I went to the University of the Southern Caribbean in Trinidad. Anybody
Hmm.
who knows, hey.
Okay.
And during those spoken word sessions, people were very, very vulnerable in a way I had never seen before.
Mm.
They spoke about sexual abuse. They spoke about, especially mental health. They spoke a lot about mental health and crime and violence in Trinidad and stuff like that. And I think around that time is when I was able to put a name to it. As well as, I think my very first boyfriend in college, she was like, "Oh, you're having a depressive episode." I was like,
Wow.
and
How
he
did you take to
encouraged
hearing
me.
that?
I was open to it, because at that point in time, I was so desperate for answers that I would,
Mm.
you know, but it took many years for me to truly embrace and understand what that meant. So he encouraged me to go to counseling on campus, but I didn't really keep up with it. And then I came home and things just kind of like spiraled.
Mm.
And then I actually sought therapy. But before I could find a compatible therapist, because that's a difficult thing to do, especially if people of color,
Girl.
a whole other conversation.
I always say finding a therapist is like finding a partner because
Yep.
there's so many things that you don't think about, but the compatibility can really play a part in your
Yes.
progress, I think.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. And it wasn't until this year that I was able to find a compatible therapist. And
Yeah.
I absolutely love her. It's not that persons who are like a different gender, a different
Mhm.
age, or a different race from you wouldn't understand. But sometimes it's much easier when you have a certain level of intersectionality on
Definitely.
whatever playing ground makes you feel most comfortable, because again, all of our issues are different,
Mhm.
and different therapists have different experiences that could lend to the conversation, to lend to your
Right.
healing and stuff like that. But for me, before I could find that compatible therapist, I had to create my own homemade remedies for therapy. I had to go in nature. I live on an island, so the beach was the beginning.
Yes, honestly, the beach is my happy place, and it depresses me so much to know that I'm not living in a place where
Oh,
I can access the beach at all times. I love the
mm-hmm.
beach so much, so I get it.
Is a lake similar to a beach? Like, are you close to any lakes?
Mm, it's not the same, girl. I
It's
mean,
not the
like
same.
water in general is great, but a lake
Mm,
is not the same. I
mm.
personally, I'm not swimming in a lake. I'm just not doing that.
I don't think I've ever seen a lake up close. It sounds big and scary, but I just assumed that they
I
were
mean,
like,
I've been on boats in the lake, but I think the thing is that with the lake, I feel like I need to be able to see what's going on, especially in the
yes,
Caribbean water. It's
yeah,
clear, you can see it. But when the water is
mm-hmm.
green and murky and you
Murky,
can't even see what's going on, it's just to me, it's a little sketch.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
trust it. I don't know what's down there.
So that lends to
And
your anxiety instead of taking it
yeah,
away.
people might argue that the ocean is probably even scarier, but it doesn't scare me. Maybe that's because I was raised
See,
around
the
the
ocean
ocean or
scares me.
something. I don't know, but that is a comfort for me.
The ocean scares me. I stay up to
Oh,
here when I go in the water. Other than that, because I can't swim. I think
oh
if I
no,
were
honey.
drowning, I'll figure it out, fight or flight kind of thing. But
No, I
I,
love the beach. I mean, I can swim, so it doesn't scare me like that, but I love the beach. The sand, that's the thing. Lakes don't have sand.
yeah.
That's another thing.
Oh, what does
Some
it have?
people
Dirt?
don't. What was that?
It has dirt. What does a lake have?
Sometimes it'll have like these little pebbles, like stones or something, but it's not
Mm,
sand. Some of them will have sand. Like
yeah.
if you go to Lake Michigan, I went to Lake Michigan recently,
Hmm.
they have sand, but
Oh,
it's
okay.
kind of just like, it's just not the
Also, the
same.
beach, the sound of the waves, the smell of the ocean,
Yes.
the foliage. It really is something. It's
That's it
magnificent.
too, girl.
And
The smell. The smell of
mhm,
the salt water, you don't get that with the lake
therapeutic.
because it's fresh. You get a
Hmm.
different smell that's a little less. It's not my favorite. Sorry to anyone who loves lakes. I'm sorry. I can't. I can't get on board with it.
Yeah, but all those things that you mentioned, those are, I would always suggest to people to use what you have access to.
Yeah.
So I thought about the beach because I knew it was the closest thing, it was the most accessible thing. And I just kept going to the beach. I kept going to the beach, watching the sunset, just immersing myself in nature. That was the beginning of my therapy.
I
And
love that.
also journaling. I think that, well, as a writer, sorry, sometimes I get tired of writing. And
Mm.
so I found a different method of journaling through voice notes. So
Oh.
anybody could do this. And recently I heard somebody say that they also do video journals because they saw Beyonce, I think for a year after her first miscarriage, she was doing video journals, and that eventually was incorporated into some sort of documentary. But I thought that was a good idea too. So
I
if you
love
can't
that.
afford a therapist, yeah, if you can't afford a therapist, having a video journal and recording voice notes on a daily basis, one, it acts as almost like this what do you call it when you document things? I can't remember what it's called.
I get what you're
But
saying,
yeah,
but I can't
yeah,
remember either. But yeah,
yeah, you know what I
documenting.
mean.
I know what you're
Yeah,
saying.
it's just like
Just
this
like keeping track.
documentation.
Mhm.
Exactly. And then you look back at it when you've reached another junction in your life and you see how much you've grown. But it also helps you to get things off of your chest.
Yeah.
In a way, sometimes you just need to say it. Sometimes you
Yes.
just need to say it. And
Yeah.
yeah, it
You know,
helps if somebody is there on the other end. But I realize it's just as therapeutic because you just get it
mm,
off. You just get it out. You release
exactly.
it.
Letting it out is really the big thing. Like actually, so I that's a big reason why I started the podcast is for myself
Mm-hmm.
to document and kind of speak out on things for mainly myself, on
Mm-hmm.
how I'm feeling and look back. And I actually was talking to my friend about this because I started writing poems. I started writing them like last year, actually, when everything started happening. I don't really
Mm-hmm.
consider myself a poet, but like
Everybody can be a poet.
literally last not last night, 2 days ago, I wrote about something that I've never written about. I was expressing this to my friend that, I've been through a lot of stuff and I've talked about it a little bit, but I've like you said with the journaling, I never actually wrote down how I really feel about that specific
Mm-hmm.
thing. And I wrote a poem about it specifically, and it was the very first time that I put I put the words to in a way that made sense, and it
Mm-hmm.
really made me feel better. You know, it's something that had happened a long time ago that still
Mm-hmm.
affects me, but
Mm-hmm.
just being able to describe the situation and write it in a way that, is explicit, I think it was so helpful. So I love to hear that you're
Yeah.
journaling. I love the different ways of journaling because I think that
Mm-hmm.
people think that it's just writing
Mm.
down, and a lot of people don't write. So they're like, no, I don't want to do that. But I love the
Yeah.
idea of the video and also the
Mm.
voice note because anyone can do it and it's easy and it's a
Yes.
release, like you said.
Yeah. And there is this, I know a lot of people have this thing against therapy because I don't want
Mhm.
anybody to know my business. I don't want to tell a stranger my business. But with this, with your phone, especially if you have an iPhone, because the security is top notch, you
Okay.
have a lock on your phone. Nobody can get into your phone except God.
Mhm.
And so you have that sort of security, and it kind of
Yeah.
helps you along that way until you're in a place where you could either afford a therapist or you feel like you're trusting enough to go to somebody else.
Mhm.
And it really helps you to work out your thoughts because I'm an overthinker. So all my thoughts stay trapped up here.
Mm. Yeah.
And let me tell you, bottling things up is not a good idea because when
No.
it comes out at the worst possible times, in the worst
Mm.
possible ways, and you have to be apologizing, and you don't want that. It's not healthy for you or the people around you. And yeah, those are the first two ways that I started, going
Mhm.
doing my own personal therapy, but also self-care. Finding
Mm.
little ways of doing self-care. I think sometimes people think that self-care has to be extravagant and
Right.
expensive, but you just have to, it differs from person to person. I know some people take bubble baths. For me, it's candles. I just love candles. I love
Oh,
the
I
way
love
they
candles too.
smell. Yes. I feel like we're twins on so many levels.
I love that.
And it just adds like this different ambiance to my room or my bathroom or wherever I put them. Um, Also getting, I don't know if this is too explicit for the podcast, but getting a Brazilian wax for the first time in my life.
Was self-care for you?
That was so cute for me. It
Wow,
was
girl.
and
Listen, I
I
got
would just
one and I
encourage
said I'll never
that.
do it again. Like, that's terrible. That was so
It was
painful. But
painful.
listen, power to you, girl. Whatever is
Yeah.
self-care for you, get it.
Yeah. I think what inspired me to do that was I read article. I would not encourage anybody to do what I'm about to say. So this guy, he said that the quarantine, him being stuck inside his house, was just totally getting to him, and he just walked out into the lake. Walked out. I think it was like a bridge or a jetty or something, and he's like, I'm just gonna dive into the water. And people thought this man was about to commit suicide, and he's like, no, I just need to dive into the water, and he did that every day for
Wow.
the rest of the quarantine. And so sometimes people are about to stop and be like, are you going to kill yourself? And he's like, no. And I realize it's that feeling. I think it's the adrenaline rush for him.
Hmm.
right? It's adrenaline rush for him. It was him doing something that he's never done before, and
Hmm.
also him um, taking away fear out of something that was therapeutic. So him swimming in the expanse of water, I think for him it was like bungee jumping.
Yeah.
And bungee jumping is
Power
something that I
to
always
him,
wanted
but
to do.
no.
If you're afraid of deep water, if you're not a good swimmer. But I think the person who wrote the article was basically trying to say, do something that scares you. He's
Mm,
probably not the best example of doing that. But if you're a daredevil and you want to go bungee jumping or
uh-huh.
what's it called, skydiving or getting a Brazilian wax,
Same category. Honestly, I haven't done it. I feel like, yeah, I would compare it to jumping out of an airplane because it really is
it's
terrible.
painful. It's
It is so
painful. After the first time, it gets better though.
Does it though? Does
And
it?
it's just the razor bumps. I couldn't deal with razor bumps anymore. And
Yeah.
seeing I was going to the beach often, and
Mhm.
oh, that's another thing, like finally putting on a proper bathing suit without having 2 million
Yes.
pieces of clothes on, a shirt, a short pants, a this, a that. And so the Brazilian wax afforded me that opportunity. And I just like walked in the ocean, me and all the 20 pounds that I gained in front of all these people and all
Who
the
cares?
skinny models.
No
And I'm
one looks
like,
at
I'm
anyone at the
here.
beach, by the way.
They don't.
No one cares.
You know what? Say it again for the people in the back because I'm
Nobody
always self-conscious.
cares. Listen, when you go to the beach, you're insecure about yourself because I also, girl, like I just started wearing two-piece bathing suits because I was very much like, well, we want to cover up, we want to show everything,
Mm-hmm.
insecure about the body.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was like, but no one cares though.
Who
Like I go to the
cares?
beach. Who
Exactly.
is looking at me? Nobody.
Exactly. Exactly. So I wore a two-piece bathing suit
Get
from
it, girl.
the Mac collection. If the
Okay.
Mac collection is listening, please sponsor Day and this
Yes,
podcast.
sponsor us,
Thank you.
please.
And I'm going to wear my bathing suit. I just did not realize that summer was halfway done.
Well, girl, you live in the Caribbean, so like it's always summer, honey.
Yeah. Yes, always summer.
I'm
But
so jealous.
girl, this mental health journey has been there have been so many highs and lows. So many times I'm asking myself, why am I doing this podcast? And why am I writing this blog? And why am I
Mm,
doing this? And I would really love to monetize. It came a point where I realized I wanted to monetize this simply because I would love to make this my full-time job. But if
yeah.
this was my full-time job, would I still love it as much? And I just also
Mm,
have to remember the reason. I have to go back to my why.
yes. And
Going
that's why
back to
we're
my
here.
why.
The why.
Remember that 14-year-old girl who was scared and confused and lonely and just extremely sensitive? Because I realized that my spiritual gift is a gift of empathy. I did
Mm,
not understand that before. I didn't understand why I cried so easily, why I was always so emotional, why I maybe the person in the room who was going through the most was always like coming to me. And I asked myself, why are you coming to me?
mm,
Why are you coming to me? But then I realized when God gives you a gift, it is your life's work to execute that gift because
yes.
that's why you're here. And it could be a burden and also a beautiful thing. It's a burden because, like, this is your cross.
Mm-hmm.
This is a cross that God gives you, and you have to pick it up and follow Him. But cross is not an easy thing to bear because there's some days where you could just feel like the weight of the world on your shoulders,
Mm,
but you still want to go out there and write this blog post because there's someone out there who needs to hear it.
yeah.
And like the Holy Spirit is in your mind telling you, you need to write this, you need to write this, you need to record this. But at the same time, it's like, I'm so tired. And you have to
Yeah.
ask God for strength and also have to pull from your community. Sometimes there are people
Yes.
around you who are there who are willing to help you. Like starting this podcast, I God, one of the things that God said is like pull from your community, like everything you need. And this is a message to anyone who needs to hear it, who is afraid of like quitting their job, who's afraid of starting that business, who's afraid of doing anything. If there's a desire in your heart, just do it because all the resources that you need are right in front of you. And I did that. I looked on Instagram, I saw a day I saw all the boys who were in my community who would be open enough to have a conversation about men
Mhm.
and mental health in the Caribbean. I saw people who were inboxing me in my Gmail inbox account and saying, "Hey, would you like to collaborate?" And I'm thinking to myself, "Why would you want to collaborate with me? Like I'm
Hmm.
nobody special." And God is like, "Here are all the tools and all the resources and all the people that you need in order to bless and be a blessing to someone else. Just do it." And that in itself is also a form of therapy, making sure that you are
Yes.
executing your life's work, the thing, the desire that God has planted in your heart. Just do it. Just do it. And it's a form of relief. When I post a podcast episode, I go to sleep so much lighter because I feel like I've done
Wow.
my work for the day or for the week. And I always tell myself at the end of my life, when I take my last breath or I close my eyes in death, would I be able to say that I've done all that I was able to do to
Hmm.
help somebody, to touch somebody, to change and heal the world? And now I feel like I'm progressing to that place. Whether I die at 80 or 105, I want to be able to feel that, to feel like I made a difference. And maybe someone
Yes.
didn't commit suicide because of a blog post I did. Someone was able to mend a relationship with their father because we were able to have a conversation on the street or something like that. So I just encourage people to find your own form of therapy, even if it's a form of therapy, just like they or just like myself, that helps other people in the process. Because you being
Mhm.
vulnerable could help somebody else.
Yeah.
There's so many
I
times we're
love
afraid to
that.
tell people our business, but it's not really that. It's like
Mhm.
your story is part of a bigger framework where we could
Mm.
all just come together as a community and heal.
And this is one of the reasons why Celine and I just clicked because I always feel like I'm talking to myself when I talk to you. Because, like, so we have so many similarities. We both started our podcasts basically for the same reason.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the fears that you're talking about and the things that you worry about and think about are things that I worried and thought
Mm-hmm.
about. When you first reached out to me, it was like, I am literally nobody. Like, how does this person even know me? And this person's telling me that she's so nervous to talk to me. And I'm like a basic, boring person. Like, I am no one.
No way.
But just
No
like
way.
just the fact that we have been able to connect like that alone, I know
Mm-hmm.
that was the Lord's doing. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just one of the many examples, as like you said, why you should do that thing that scares you, do the
Mm-hmm.
thing that you're hesitant about, because you that's what God wants to use you through.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
I just love to hear how he's worked already in your podcast. And as I told
Yeah.
you, I mean, our episode was a catalyst for a major change in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I am eternally grateful for,
Oh.
because if we never did it, like, it literally would not have happened. And so I'm
Oh.
grateful for your podcast, and I'm here like, girl,
Oh.
do it, write the blog, write, do the episode, everything. And even the episode with the men, like, you got so many men to join on there. I was so
Mhm.
amazed because just finding one guy
Yeah.
is like so hard, but you had
I
so
was shocked
many.
that
I
they
was
said
like,
yes.
wow. It was so good.
Yeah.
And I love that you're talking too about just the access in terms of therapy and like the options, because therapy is expensive. Let's just be
Oh
real.
yeah.
Therapy,
Mhm.
it costs. And if you don't have
Mhm.
money, it's not an excuse. And I've heard it
Mhm.
from many people. I myself had those excuses. I don't have money. I can't
Mhm.
afford it. Like literally right now,
Mhm.
but I have prioritized my mental health. And so, like, that, when you prioritize your mental health, not just doing that if you can, but also, like you said, the things that you can do, the things that you
Mhm.
have access to, using them, getting help,
Mhm.
using your community resources. These are things that every single person can do to address their mental health needs. So
Yeah.
I love that you talked about that. So now that
Mhm.
you've done all of these different ways of expressing yourself, when did you make the step to really dive into therapy?
Mm. When unfortunately, when I was completely falling apart.
Or fortunately, because
Unfortunately.
sometimes you need to fall apart in order to
Mhm.
get the help that you need.
Oh, that's very true. That's very true. And there's some people who treat therapy like a doctor's visit. You know, you're supposed to take your
Mm,
annual physical analysis,
right.
and then because you've been going, they'll be able to catch certain things early on. And then there's some people like me who wait until um and for me, it was an issue with boundaries. I did
Mm,
not set boundaries, and I there's not even one particular aspect of my life. I wasn't setting boundaries with anybody, not at work,
mm,
not at church, not in my nowhere. And I eventually just had like a breakdown. I was like,
mm.
oh my gosh, I can't send money to go to therapy. I need help. And my therapist was really able to help me work through that by suggest I did start that book, by the way. We
Yeah,
talk about boundaries.
you
I did.
guys, I've already talked about the boundaries book. Where is it at? Up here it is. It's far away, actually. This is the workbook. This is the workbook, but this is the book, y'all. I will never stop praising this book, let me tell
I
you.
need to finish it
And you
though.
know
I
what?
started, but I
I
need
just
to,
want to tell
yeah.
you guys that if you think that you don't have a problem with boundaries, spoiler alert,
Mm-hmm.
you do. Okay. Because I feel like
Mm-hmm.
every single person has an issue with this. I didn't realize I had a problem with boundaries. I thought I was great.
Mm-hmm.
But then I read the book and I was like, oh, but this is actually like me. Like this character is
Mm-hmm.
who I am. And it
Yeah.
really hit me. I was like, oh, maybe I do have a problem with boundaries.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It puts you in a position of accountability because so many times
Yeah.
I was blaming people for like trespassing in certain areas of my life when it was really me. I'm supposed to step up and say,
Mm,
hey, this makes me uncomfortable. I don't like when you do this. And if you do it again, well,
mm.
you know, I had not done that. I think I was waiting for people to read my mind or do the right thing. And that did not happen. And I just had a breakdown, girl, and that was a catalyst for me going to therapy and not just healing that beginning to heal that aspect of my life
Mhm.
because that's still a work in progress. But other things like traumas, like I remember dating this guy who was like, you should not still be talking about things that happened in high school. But I do. Something still impact me, still affect me.
Girl, let me stop you right there real quick. Why did you say that? Should not be talking about things in high school, still in high school, girl. What? These are our formative years. These are things that do impact us. And I'm gonna be real, like I still think about things like that too. These are I think
Yeah.
I think this is part of the problem though. I think the problem is that we have these assumptions on what is trauma and
Mm-hmm.
what should be okay, what should not be okay, what is acceptable, is this considered even trauma, and we
Mm-hmm.
minimize our experiences because it doesn't necessarily look like this grand
A
issue, but
word.
don't minimize your experience. That's all I really want to say, because whatever you experienced when you were in high school, younger than that, whatever, if it had an impact on you, that's something that's important and needs to be
Mm-hmm.
continues to be discussed and not minimized, girl. Anyways,
Yeah, because that particular issue, it was one traumatizing event. Well, not
mhm,
not say one. It was something that had stretched on for a few weeks.
mhm.
From that, I developed an eating disorder. I developed
Wow.
really bad anxiety. Yeah, I was a really big 14-year-old, and in a matter of months, I came down to the size of a stick. And I did not notice at the time because everybody's like, what are you eating to lose weight? And what are you doing? But
Mhm,
in the mornings before I went to school, I was so anxious to go to school that I was just throwing up breakfast and I couldn't eat for the rest of the
mm.
day. So what do you call that, bulimia? Is that bulimia? When
Mm,
you're just throwing up?
so you would
I
eat
don't
and
know
then
that.
throw up?
Yeah, but not on purpose. Like I was just so anxious I couldn't hold on food.
That's interesting. I don't know if it
I don't know what
really
that's called.
I don't know if it kind of meets the criteria for, like, that specific eating disorder, but it
Hmm.
definitely is a symptom of an eating disorder, it sounds like.
Well, I have no idea what it's called, but I just could not hold on food and I was just throwing up,
Mhm.
just throwing up. And that's how I was losing weight. And everyone thought it was something special that was in. I was like, nope.
I mean, actually, separate from eating disorder, anxiety, depression, those things can have physical effects on your body. So it actually
Mm,
is not, when you do, I don't know if you've ever gone to like a psychologist or something, but when they do assessments, they will ask you about physical symptoms because a lot of times, if you rule out any medical conditions, those are connected. So even like when you said that you threw up after you ate,
mhm,
to me, I don't hear eating disorder. To me, I hear just anxiety because there are a lot of people who have
mm,
physical symptoms connected with
mhm.
anxiety. So, yeah.
I've been, I see, I did a questionnaire once, but they didn't
Mhm.
ask me that on the questionnaire.
Mhm.
Hmm. But yeah, and so that was that, and that happened for the sort of the majority of high school. And so people were wondering,
Wow.
oh, how are you able to stay skinny? Because I don't want to be here.
Mm.
And that was so I have had a bad relationship with food from that
Mm.
point onwards. So I get really, really big, really, really small, and depending on how I'm feeling, that is my relationship with
Okay.
food. And that
Mm.
is for some reason, he's like, that shouldn't still be affecting you. So my
And
ex
who
was
told
telling
you
me.
that? Get that out of your head right now. Get it out
And
because
yeah.
sorry, yeah, I was gonna let you continue. I was gonna say, get it out of your head because that prevents you from your healing. Because you're beating
Hmm.
yourself up about something that really was you never had control over that. It
Yeah.
sounds like someone did or said something that affected you that was out of your control.
Hmm.
And just the fact that it affected you is not your fault. So, what I think that
Yeah.
this is something that I have learned within myself, just with my divorce and being in that relationship. Especially as women, again, we tend to take the blame for things that are just not our fault. And I have learned
Hmm.
to really start to separate what belongs to me and what doesn't belong to me.
Hmm.
And this is something that affected you. And I'm so sorry to hear that it's still um affecting you, but don't blame yourself for it or feel like it shouldn't because no one is telling you that. I would
Mm.
hope so anyway.
But that just links back to trauma, as you said. Like
Mhm.
people think that trauma needs to look a certain or PTSD for a long time.
Yeah.
PTSD was we related it to war
Mhm.
and veterans. And no, it could be in for a number of different reasons, also the stemming from a number of different situations. But this is why grace is so important. Having grace when it comes to the people in your life and
Mm.
having grace with yourself. We don't give ourselves enough grace. We're too hard on
That
ourselves
part.
and don't give ourselves enough space to grow and to learn. It's like, okay, this really bad thing happened.
Mhm.
Let me forget that it happened. Let me grow and move on. And sometimes we think that we're growing and moving on. We're really just tucking it away.
Yeah.
Then something in the future happens and it takes us right back to that space
Mhm.
where we did not do the proper healing, the talking, like communication. Oh my gosh,
Mhm.
sometimes so many things could be dealt with by a simple conversation.
Yeah.
We don't do that.
We don't know
um
how to.
no, especially with our parents. I'm learning how to really talk to my parents more because this is this generation of Caribbean parents who are okay with not talking,
Mhm.
and they themselves went through their own trauma and it presented itself in terms of how they reared us. And we accept certain things as a law simply because it's mom and it's dad. And
Mhm.
I've really had to like sit down and talk to my parents about certain things that bothered me and said, hey, this is serious for me. And I'd like if you hear me out.
Mhm.
And it's been a point of healing because it's taken a while, but eventually, especially with this podcast, with my mom realized how serious the topic of mental health was for me, and she'd sit
Yeah.
down and she's actually hearing the things I'm saying and said, you know what, I could see how XYZ affected you or XYZ affected me, and it's been like a really healing space, that part. So
I love that.
yeah.
And again, I think that's just the amazing thing about what you're doing because the healing is already happening. Like
Yeah.
your healing, your family's healing. And I think this is the step into undoing those generational things that we've just carried
Mhm.
with us. So,
Mhm.
girl, you're already doing it. And, that's what I said to, that's what I've said to myself. Like, if I never have to do an episode of the podcast again, I'm happy because so many things have changed since the first
Mhm.
time. And what I wanted to say
Mhm.
just a little bit, going back to what we were talking about, listen to the podcast or whatever. When you write your journals again, reread
Mhm.
them, listen to them, watch them again, like go back. Cause I think that's the
Mhm.
thing that will remind you, oh,
Yeah.
okay, and sometimes we need those reminders. Okay,
Mhm.
so now we're in therapy. We have recognized the issues that we have. Did you have any issues like initially getting into therapy, like any stigmas or with your family? Like what was that like for you?
Um, Again, this I ended up going to therapy because I'd reached the end of my rope. So I think at
Yeah.
that point in time, I actually didn't tell my parents.
Mhm. Mhm.
I was living with them. I didn't really tell them. My brother knew that I was going, and I think for him it was, as long as you get the help that you need. He's always been a very supportive person.
That's awesome.
He's my younger brother, by the way, by 4 years. And yeah, he's always been a supportive person. But I typically, because I was afraid of that stigma, I didn't tell my parents
Mhm.
until the end. I've had friends though who are like, why do you need a therapist if you could just talk to your friends? But I haven't been
Mhm.
able to really explain the difference between talking to a friend who might have a biased opinion and who might be judgmental because of certain things that they know versus talking to a unbiased professional
Professional.
who,
Mhm.
yeah, who has like a certain way of addressing your trauma and your issues and can pinpoint something as, no, this is not you being stupid, you're doing X because of Y and you need to solve it
Right.
in order to get to Z. And yeah, so the only stigma was from certain friends, but like my parents, I could tell that they were lost and confused.
Oh.
But when they finally figured out, they were like, okay, whatever, okay, whatever makes you happy.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, there was a point in time I was going to therapy to deal with the relationship with my parents, not them exclusively, but they were part of the whole everything that exploded. So it was church, work, home,
Mhm.
my relationship, my friendships. So
Yeah.
it was all just bottled into one. And my therapist really had to help me take the time to unravel and see how some things were related and how some things weren't. Um, but yeah, because I had reached a point where I went to therapy because I was at the end of my rope, no one really like bothered me. My friends were
Okay.
like, why can't you just talk to us? But you know,
Mm.
yeah.
Did that change the relationship that you had with anyone in your life?
Um, hmm, Slowly. It didn't happen overnight.
Mhm.
It didn't happen overnight. But there were some things that took longer to deal with, that took years. There were
Yeah.
other relationships that could not be fixed, and I had to let go of them for my own mental health. There were some people who just had to get the boot. But there are other people, for example, like your parents, you have to address certain
Right.
things. Yeah, especially if it's like, there's some people who have like extremely toxic parents. You should never talk to them again. And certain things are just like a conversation. You have to sit down and like, hey, mom, dad,
Mhm.
let's talk. Let's have a conversation. But yeah, that's how that went. Uh, as I said, the boundaries was the biggest
Yeah.
issue. And that takes a lot of strength, especially if you're the type of person who is accustomed to saying yes all the time.
Mhm.
There's one particular person, I'm not ready to talk about her yet, but there's this one particular person in my life who just a narcissist on all accounts.
Mm.
And I, at this point in our relationship, it was too late to enforce boundaries, and I had to move away from this person because
Yeah.
it was just really, really bad. And when I say narcissist, it's like very selfish, just does and has no idea that what they're doing is affecting
Mm-hmm.
people. The people in my life were
I
like,
know some of
you should just
those.
tell. And the people in my life were just like, why don't you just say, why don't you just enforce those boundaries? I think
Mm-hmm.
what happened is that I had seen people attempt to enforce boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw what the result of that was, and I was
Mm-hmm.
terrified, absolutely terrified. So I just there's sometimes in your life where you have to release certain
Okay.
relationships instead of staying to fix them. I think we've been taught that everything can be fixed, especially certain relationships.
And
And
that's
you look at the
okay.
benefits.
I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the biggest thing because sometimes we want to, we think it's wrong to not have everybody be our BFFs. And that's just not
Mm-hmm.
going to be the case ever. And
Yeah.
that's fine.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes people are looking at the benefits. For example, if you're married, they're like, oh, the kids, or if it's a job, oh, you're getting income and health insurance. And like
Mm,
sometimes in order to save your soul, you need to step away. You
yep.
need to step away.
Mental health is health. And if you
Mm-hmm.
don't do things to protect your mental health, your health will deteriorate. So you
Mm-hmm.
have to do that, period. You know,
Yeah.
it's a necessity, I think.
Yes. Yes. But we don't see it that way because we can't see that somebody's hurt,
Mm-hmm.
because there isn't cut, there isn't blood, because there isn't anything immediate that happens until someone takes their life. And
Mm,
then that's a whole different story because of how we view suicide. We view it as, coward's way out. But we don't see it
mm,
as the end result of someone who's been suffering for an extremely long
yeah.
time, who just did not have resources, or didn't know how to access resources, or didn't have like the support, or was just going through an extremely difficult time. But think about all the relationships that could have been saved, or all the people who could have not suffered in silence had they taken care of their mental health the way they take care of their physical health,
Yep.
you
And
know?
the way they take care of other people, because I think
Ooh,
that's another issue. I mean, I know that was my problem,
I
just
know that's my problem.
yeah.
Currently, it's been difficult, and still, from the first conversation that we had, where
Yeah.
you were talking about, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Mhm.
I am still, so I've gotten a little bit better, but still a difficult thing, because there are times where I just don't understand why people don't automatically like pour into
Mhm.
you the way you pour into them. And I've had to learn, Sylene, you're responsible for yourself.
Yeah.
You're responsible for pouring into yourself. You cannot
Mhm.
wait. And
I
sometimes it
used
makes,
to yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I would say sometimes it makes it difficult to pour into people,
Yeah.
because I'm like, should I even be pouring into you if you're
Mhm.
not going to be pouring
Mhm.
back into me?
Well, here's the
Yeah.
thing, right? I remember when I was in college, so I was probably like 18, 19, and I was involved in a group at church. And I remember I came home one day and I was just complaining to my parents that the members are not doing this and they're not doing this. And I just really
Mm-hmm.
need everyone to just do this. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad said, okay, but everybody's not you though. You're expecting you from everyone else, and that's just not possible. Once
Wow.
you realize who people are and you realize
Mm-hmm.
what they're capable of giving or just
Mm-hmm.
what they are giving, not even the capability, because sometimes I think we get stuck on the potential versus what is actually
Ooh.
right there in front of us. But when you see, okay, Selena is Celine, and the way Celine is relating to me is the way she knows how to. And I need to deal with
Mm-hmm.
Celine like she is Celine and not like she is me. And when
Mm-hmm.
you do that, I think you really are able to give yourself more peace. Sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it comes back to a feeling of like control that we want to have. We want to make sure that
Yeah.
we want things a certain way, but that we need to let go of that too. We're never going to have that
Mm-hmm.
ever. So,
Oh, that's my problem. Control. And I never
yeah,
thought I was a
girl.
controlling person. But I think I don't know how to trust. And
Mm.
I realized that I need to put my trust in God, because people are going to disappoint you.
Yeah,
But once you say, you know what, God, I don't know what the outcome of the situation is going to be, so I'm putting this in your hands and you guide me. Because it really is, I don't like not knowing. And I don't like,
yeah,
I like, if like when it comes to group projects in college, I was like, why do you have to do this? If
I
I could
hated
do this
it.
myself, it'll be perfect. But the fact that I have to like trust that you're
Rely
gonna
on
do
somebody else. Yep.
exactly, it's just so it's scary.
It is scary.
Scary.
It's scary, but you know what? God did not put us on the earth by ourselves for a reason. And
Mm,
so I think that when we learn to relate to people in a way that is healthy and Christ like, we're gonna be okay. You know what I mean? Like,
mhm,
yeah, I don't think God put us on the earth to be burdened by the people in our lives. You know what I mean? I feel like
mhm.
He put us on the earth because He knew that we all need each other, and we have to
Yeah.
just figure out how to be able to be there for each other while also being there for ourselves. And I think something I'm learning for myself is even up to this week, I was talking to my therapist about is trusting in yourself, giving yourself what you need,
Mm,
holding value in you again and not on anyone else. You know, like we mentioned earlier, big part of my problem was my value. I was like feeling insecure and I had low self esteem because one man did not treat me a certain way and did not love
mm,
me the way he should have been loving me. And when my
mm,
therapist was able to say, "Okay, but if this one person doesn't love you, does that mean that you're not worthy of love? And does that mean that
mm,
other people in your life don't also love you? Like one person doesn't love you, but how many other people do? And how
mhm,
do other people treat you? Do your friends and
mhm.
family treat you the way that he did? And the answer is no, because they actually legitimately love me for
Correct.
me. But the bottom line is,
Mhm,
I have to love me for me too.
mhm.
And I have to be okay with that, you know? And eh, when you place your value in others, you're just going to be disappointed all the time.
And this is exactly how we started with this
Exactly.
exact
Yep.
conversation.
Exactly. Right. Full circle. Right back there.
Yeah.
Mhm. So, okay. So now we're on our healing journey and we've decided to share with everybody. What would you say
Hmm.
is like your ultimate goal for your podcast?
Oh gosh, I think about this so often and I'm not sure, because what I really wanted to be at the onset of my blog in 2016, I just wanted to be the next Maya Angelou. I wanted to be a poet. Yeah, because that's why I'm a poet.
Love?
And yes, girl. And it's funny because, when they were asking everybody in school, what do you want to be when you grow up? I was never able to say this until now when I heard another creator talk about it. But
Mm,
he said, I wanted to be everything. For me, I had no clue what I wanted to be. I was just regurgitating whatever I heard or saying whatever I thought
yeah.
was acceptable or the right answer.
Which,
But
spoiler
as
alert,
I,
no one knew what they wanted to do. So you were not alone in that regard either. Okay.
well, that's reassuring, because I was a loss. I was like, what? I want to be a gynecologist. Okay, here we go. And yeah, girl, a poet. So that's what I started out wanting to do. But I realized as everything changed from
Mm,
poetry to being a blogger to the podcast to interviewing and stuff like that, I just want to be in a position to help people. I don't know if that means I'm gonna get my own radio show. I'm gonna be a talk show host. I'm gonna be. I At this point in time, I don't even know. I would like for like YouTube and the podcast and stuff like that to take off in a direction that gives me the ability to disseminate these vulnerable conversations in a way that's most accessible to the people who need them. And I
I
don't know what that
love
looks like.
that. Let me just bottle up that statement right there. Okay. Yes.
And I don't know what that looks like as yet, but because technology is evolving and because this period, this space of quarantine has allowed us to find areas of self-expression in the strangest of places and the most creative of places, I'm just waiting on God to see where he takes me in the next couple of years and just following his word and his command. So for right now, it's podcasting, it's blogging, and it's the YouTube channel. I don't know what that's gonna look like a year from now.
Hmm.
But for
I
now,
love
that's where we
this.
are.
I love the Celine. And I think another thing that we both related to was just the fact that we both don't have it figured out, but we're still talking about it like as we're
Yeah.
figuring it out. I think
Mhm.
that is so beautiful because that is a thing that keeps us connected to whoever stays listening. Because none of us have
Mhm.
it figured out. Like that's just the reality. None of us know what is going on. We're just kind of going
Yep.
with the flow as it
Mhm.
goes. And I think
Yep.
that's awesome. And I think the idea of also adapting to whatever technology happens is awesome,
Yeah.
and the underlying like just this need for helping people. I
Mhm.
love it. And I think you're all, as I said, you're already doing it, and I
Thank you
know that
so
God will
much.
continue to work through you with the podcast
Mhm.
and wherever else, whatever else comes to be. And
Yeah.
remember us small people when that happens, okay?
Oh, dang. You gassing me up, girl.
No, I'm just talking truth, girl. And
Oh.
sometimes we have to do that. And sometimes we have to remind
Mhm.
ourselves. We got to
Yeah.
gas up ourselves. Okay.
Yeah. Definitely.
So, everybody, go check out Celine's podcast. Go ahead. I'm giving you your moment. Plug yourself. Tell everybody where we can find you, Celine.
All right, guys. So it's the Hey We Need to Talk podcast on Facebook. Facebook will basically redirect you to wherever you need to go. But you could also find us on anchor.fm/ Hey We Need to Talk pod. That's very important. Here we need to talk pod, pod at the end. Also my blog, www.syljoe.com. That's SYLJOE. And that will also take you wherever else you need to go. You'll find access to my Medium page where I talk more about mental health, as well as be able to check me out on YouTube from that page. So you can find everything on sojo.com or Here We Need to Talk podcast on Facebook. And yeah, I hope you enjoy the resources that you see there, the vulnerable conversations. Join the conversation in the comment section, subscribe to the YouTube
Yes.
channel. Let's do this together. Let's heal the world together while healing ourselves.
I love it. And I will put all of Celine's information in the description box below in our YouTube channel and also on wherever you listen to podcasts in the description. All
Mhm.
Celine's information will be there, y'all. Okay,
Yeah.
before we end, we do our What God Has Taught Me segment, which honestly, I feel like we're
Mhm.
talking about a lot of things that we've learned along the way, but I like to
Mhm.
dedicate a specific time to something God has taught us in the recent times. So, do you want to go first or should I go? What do you think?
You go first.
Okay. So, something that God has taught me, you guys, let me just tell you, I have a testimony that is brewing and I can't really talk about it just yet, but it's coming, y'all. But I'm just going to say this. God is teaching me to pray specific prayers. Let me tell y'all
Mm.
that I have been going through a thing. I'm just going to call it that. And I've been needing the Lord's direction. Like, really, I need God to tell me what to do. And, I've never been one of those people that's like, you really hear God like speaking to you so clearly or anything like that. I've never really had an experience where I feel like, I mean, I've had it a few. Let me not say that. I've had a few. The podcast is one of those. But I said, I need direction, God. I need you to tell me exactly what to do about this situation. And this week, I prayed one night and I said, Lord, because there's kind of like a deadline with everything that's going on.
Mm.
I said, God, by tomorrow morning when I wake up, I need to have an answer. I am
Mhm.
trusting in you that you are going to give me the answer because you have worked things out up until this point, and I just know that you're going to continue to work it out. Please just tell me in the clearest of ways what I need to know. And let me tell you, the next morning I woke up and I was doing my devotional, and God is just so amazing, Celine, because I've been doing a women's study this whole time, and I mentioned this
Mhm.
a lot of times. But in my women's study, what I've done is like it's not like something that's official, like you just like follow a guideline. I'm just
Okay.
doing it just for myself. So I literally started from Genesis, and every
Mhm.
day I'll go through and just I'll flip through the Bible and just find all the women
Mhm.
that pop up, and I'll kind of spend time studying that woman. So I am now in Second Kings, right?
Mhm.
And it just so happened that I came across a story, just the timing of it too. I I came across the next woman that was just kind of in line was the story of the widow who lost her husband and she had two sons, and she was about to have to she was going to have to give them up for slavery because she didn't have
Mhm.
money to pay off the credit. And just that story spoke to me in a way that I don't think there's
Mhm.
any other story that's ever spoken to me in the Bible as clear. Like the answer
Girl,
was
send me that
literally
text.
in that story. Like
Mhm.
it's kind of like I said, God, I need you to tell me the tree is green. And in the
Mhm.
verse, the verse said the tree is green. And it was just
I love
like,
it.
and guys, I know this is not making full sense. I'm not telling you the whole thing. And trust me, the whole story will come. I guarantee you it's going to come soon.
Mhm.
But the point is, I prayed a specific prayer. God answered my prayer in the most
Mhm.
specific of ways. And it's still brewing, but I just know
Yeah.
God's going to work things
He
out. And
directed you to
you know,
that
like how,
text.
yes, you were saying earlier about the trusting and the unknown. And I'm in a
Mhm.
place, I mean, I feel like over this last year, I've been in just a very uncharted territory, unknown.
Mhm.
Like I'm just kind of
Everything's in
floating. I don't
limbo.
even know where I'm going
Mhm.
at this point. And God has just taken care of me in such a way that I have no choice but to trust Him. That's how I
Mhm.
feel right now. And so that's been something I've been learning, and he's testing me and I'm learning just
Mhm.
that trust in
Mhm.
God, and just the fact that I prayed this and he answered me. And again, it's just reiterating that trust and that he's going to take care of me. I saw that devotion, girl. I read that Bible verse. I just bawled. I started crying.
Oh,
I was like, God, thank you. Thank
yeah, the
you.
relief. I can't
It's
imagine.
Girl, it's so amazing. So I just want to tell y'all, seek, ask God for what it is that
Yeah.
you
Mhm.
desire, okay?
Mhm.
Because it's not too hard for
Mhm.
him to do,
Mhm.
and he will grant you
Yeah.
the desires of your heart. I'm telling you. So that
Yeah.
is my testimony, my half testimony. But I think y'all get the gist.
Listen, listen, for me, it's that I started my sabbatical. No, typically sabbaticals of people who are in the academic arena and they take a year off and their job pays for them to be on a year off.
Mm,
Me, through a series of events that we will even have time to go through, I decided that I was going to take a year off from working, and everyone thought I was crazy, mainly because they were like, how are you going to find money to sustain yourself for the entire year? And I know that my friends were scared. They're like, how are you going to finance it? I know my parents were scared, but my parents understood, because remember, I was talking about the things that led me to therapy.
yeah.
It was just like a total, I'm burnt out. Let's put it that way. I'm burnt out and I need to take this year off for
Hmm.
myself. I need to do a lot of healing because, we're as vulnerable as possible as we can be on both of our platforms, but they're just some things that you can't
Right.
say. And Daniel, when I tell you I need this sabbatical, I need a sabbatical. And it was my health or this. So
Hmm.
the main issue was money. And let me tell you, Daniel, I do not know where the money is coming from, but the money has been there. I have never
Girl.
once been in need, and I cannot explain it. There are times when the money
Amen.
pops up, and I think it's like, what's this for now? Where did this come in from? And it's like, and the thing is, I've been in this position of trust where I told God, I know that this is the direction I need to go in, because like this is the only path. Like I've never
Mhm.
been so sure about something in my life.
Yeah.
I don't know if the reason for the sabbatical is so that I could focus more on my podcast and more on these creative pursuits, because typically that's what a sabbatical is for you to
Mhm.
focus on creative pursuits. But this has been eye-opening in that God is saying, I will provide for you. You just need to trust me. And it's been like that. And on top of that, all of the devotions that I've been doing every morning have been saying, just trust me.
Yes.
Just trust me, because everybody else around me is concerned about money. Because the thing is, bills are real. Okay, bills are real.
Facts.
Bills need to be paid. But that has not been my concern. Daniel, my concern has been, what is the next step in my direction?
I love
Because
that.
I what am I gonna do for work? What am I gonna, like, what happens when this year is done? Do I
Mhm.
move? Do I whatever? And the text is just like how you're trusting me about the money, I need to trust me about
Yeah.
where I'm gonna take you. And every morning it's, I don't know how so many devotions could have all the same theme, because in my mind, devotions are supposed to switch it up every day. It's an online thing. Exactly. You're supposed to switch it up. One day it's supposed to be about death, the next is supposed to be about grace and blah blah and resurrection. No, every day it's been, trust me.
Cuz
Just trust
God
me.
knows what you need to hear right now.
Exactly. Exactly. And I have just been so, it's like being fed by the ravens. It's like everything
Yes. Oh my gosh. I
is,
just read that story too the other day.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's, God is telling me that I need to focus on my healing. Because when I said things had come to a breaking point and I crashed, and it was like, for the period during the podcast, I don't know where I found the strength to do it, because I was just so
Mm.
exhausted. I would record and sleep, send out emails, sleep, edit, sleep, upload, sleep. I was just so exhausted, so tired. And
Wow.
I felt bad, because I felt like I wasn't putting out content as fast as I needed to. And my mother needed to remind me, Sylene, you're going through a period of healing. Like, I could tell that you're in an extremely broken and vulnerable place. Do not feel bad about the fact that you need to rest, because you have not been
Rest,
resting for
girl.
years. And it was interesting that she said you have not been resting for years, because I didn't think anybody noticed that I'd
Mhm.
been going and going and going and going. It's the most rest I've gotten in a long time. And I'm just grateful for this space and this
I love
opportunity. And I think
that.
that's another message God has given me, to rest. So leave me to rest. Just rest. Be
Yes.
still. Be still.
Girl, let me just say this as we're talking about rest and Elijah and the ravens. I actually read
Mm-hmm.
that story recently because we're in Kings. And, the lesson that I learned from that is when Elijah was running away, he was fleeing. And when he was being fed by the ravens and stuff, there was a point where he was so exhausted that he slept too for days. He just slept.
Mm-hmm.
This was actually after the raven. The angels came and provided the food for him. He ate and then
Mm-hmm.
he slept and he ate and he slept. And in that moment, like that's what he needed. He was
Mm-hmm.
at a point of running, 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 literally trying to flee
Mm-hmm.
from persecution and from actual literal
Mm-hmm.
death. And
Mm-hmm.
he was tired and he needed
Mm-hmm.
extra rest. And guess what? God gave it to him. God gave him the
Mm-hmm.
space to rest fully, to get that extra
Mm-hmm.
time of sleep, physical,
Yep.
mental rest, and gave him the energy. And then he was able to continue to do God's work. And I think that's a reminder
Mm-hmm.
that we all need, for you in this sabbatical, girl, for me too. I've been basically taking a sabbatical, not on purpose, but here we are. And it's necessary. The rest is so necessary. So I love to
Mm-hmm.
hear that from you. And girl, God is working. Let me tell
Thank
you,
you.
God,
Yes, girl. Praise
and
his
He's always
name.
working, even when we don't know that He is. He's
Mm-hmm.
always working on our behalf
Mm-hmm.
too, because He loves us and He cares about us and He wants the best for us. So,
Yeah, I agree.
thank you so much, Celine, for
Thank
joining
you for
me in this
having me.
episode.
This has been therapeutic as always. Talking to you is always therapeutic.
Aw.
So
Same
thank you
for
for
me too. I
having
love
me.
talking to you. It's very easy. We can literally talk for hours. You're so easy to
Yes.
talk to. So thank you so much, Celine. Everybody, as I said, check her out. Until next week. Bye.
Bye.